What's up guys, it's me Jeremy. The new champion Illaoi is out on the PvE and I gotta say I got a nice chance to try her out, test out some builds and see where she's standing in terms of power levels at the moment. And you know what? She was actually a lot more fun than I expected and has a really cool kit that you can actually make some crazy plays with in the right situations. Also, just a heads up, I'm going to assume that you already know what Illaoi does in this video, so if you don't, check out the champion preview link in the description. And please, for the love of God, spare me the hentai jokes. Anyways, let's get started. Illaoi is a champion that is shaping up to be a solo laner. Now Riot's marketing her as sort of a top laner, but I actually had a fairly reasonable amount of success with her in the mid lane as well. She's probably not going to be a good jungler, and she's definitely not a good support or a good AD carry. Now when I first played her, I actually thought she was pretty bad. And for good reasons too. I mean, her kit has some very glaring weaknesses that you're going to get punished for big time if you aren't playing around them properly. But after I got the hang of it, after I started playing her a little bit more, understanding her kit, I started to think that she was maybe just okay. And then I tried her a little bit in the mid lane and really started to get an understanding of her kit. And now my final decision is that I think she's reasonably, or at least somewhat, above average. I'm not entirely sure if she's going to be overpowered. It's a little bit up in the air. But one thing that I did discover is that if you are facing against an Illaoi and you have no idea what her kit does, you are going to get totally dumpstered. Man, it's crazy. And it's mostly because her kit has a lot of small nuances and quirks and stuff that are really going to wreck you if you aren't expecting them, because they can pull out a lot of hidden power seemingly out of nowhere if you don't understand the way her kit works. So to anyone facing her who doesn't know what she does and doesn't know how to play against her, doesn't know what to do, you're definitely going to think that she's overpowered for sure. Her main weaknesses stem from the fact that she essentially has no mobility and no crowd control. I mean, if you take a look at her W, the range is just so small that the ability becomes totally unreliable, and it's more of a damage tool rather than an actual gap closer. And the slow on the E it exists, but you're never really going to be able to proc it properly unless the opponent walks out of range, and by that time they're going to be far away from you. So both her mobility and crowd control, yes, they are in her kit, but they're completely unreliable and honestly just non-existent in a large majority of situations. And so this leaves her with a kit that has a total lack of versatility, and it doesn't really have too many options to choose in terms of your playstyle. It makes her super bad at chasing and also pretty bad at kiting or escaping, and that's something that you really have to get used to if you want to play her. A lot of times I found myself like flashing in on someone and then I realized, oh wait, I can't actually catch them. I have nothing to chase them with other than my flash. And that was a mistake I made many times, and is something you're definitely going to have to get used to. The no mobility, or at least no reliable mobility and no reliable crowd control, is a huge weakness in her kit, and honestly on paper that seems like pretty bad. But once you understand her playstyle and start to play around it, you can actually kind of make it work. She plays somewhat like a midline, which is essentially like a frontliner who never really extends. You don't want to initiate, you don't want to dive in, you kind of just sit at the front line and wait for people to come to you, be sort of this impassable wall for the opponents to cross, and if someone runs up at you, you just totally destroy them. Whenever you hit an opponent with a tentacle, you restore 5% missing HP, but the thing is, with her ultimate, you can proc 4 tentacles just about every 2 or maybe 3 seconds, so you can proc those heals over and over again in a fight and heal for crazy amounts. It's ridiculous. And if someone ever uses their mobility to jump in on you and brawl it out in melee range, it's a super easy fight to win. I mean, her damage is insane for how tanky she actually is, so she's a crazy duelist. It's just that you can never really get in range to kill someone. But when they jump in on you, it is honestly like the freest kill ever. It's so easy. And the missing health scaling baits people in super hard, since when you get low, you can just pop your ult, throw out some tentacles, and start healing for a crazy amount. As well, her E is a super complex ability, so when you proc it on someone, it's going to do a lot more work than the ability actually should, since they just don't know how to deal with it properly. You're supposed to kill 3 tentacles, which removes the debuff, but nobody actually really does that, and so you just get a bunch of free harass off. In lane, she's not too bad, since her Q is some pretty sweet poke and a nice heal, and you can harass people hard if you ever land your E. Her wave clear is also fantastic, so you can farm pretty well, and whenever you have your ultimate up, you actually become kind of ungankable to an extent. I mean, if someone tries to jump in on you, you can just 2v1 them, just straight up 2v1 them from full health. Her ultimate is a crazy strong ability, but only if you actually get a chance to brawl it out with your opponents in melee range. And her mana costs are actually pretty small too, so you can use your abilities a lot in lane as well, and overall she definitely plays to that of what is essentially a juggernaut. And it's worth noting as well that Steric's Gauge is a crazy powerful item on her, since the shield works so well with that missing HP scaling, because you get low, you proc the shield, you proc that sustain, that health regen, and you just outplay people like crazy. It baits people so hard. And once you get a lead, you can honestly start winning like 1v3s, like just straight up. It's insane. And she becomes so crazy powerful and so hard to kill. But she definitely does lack versatility, giving her a fairly one-dimensional playstyle of hoping that your opponents kind of just come to you, and that makes her almost completely useless if you fall behind, and it makes it tough for her to do anything in the jungle or support roles. She has trouble versus anyone who can kite her reliably, and versus hypermobile duelists who can outplay her easily as well when it comes to the laning phase too. All of her tentacle attacks are dodgeable, so if you face someone who is hypermobile and has pretty good mechanics, it can be pretty tough to come out ahead. But if you're facing against a champion that has a one-dimensional mobility, like they just jump in and they can't jump out, it's not actually that hard. You just have to bait them to jump in on you and waste their mobility to close the gap on you, and then you can outplay them with your massive heals and damage. The biggest thing that surprised me about Illaoi was honestly just how easy it was to bait people in to jump in on you when you're at mid or even low health. So knowing what she does and how to play against her is going to be seriously important to beating her, and because of that, I think a lot of people are going to think that Illaoi is overpowered on release. Now, whether or not she actually is overpowered on release, I'm not entirely sure, but I'm leaning more towards no. But you do have to exploit her weaknesses a lot when facing her, and oh my god, please kill the tentacles when you're laning against her. So that's just about it. What do you think of Illaoi? Leave a comment, and thanks for watching.
The agent to a game deadly sure to lose. Major symptomatic fecal flaws due to twisting gutter flips and bats and forth and it's time. I know it takes a mighty dose of faith, but keep in mind we just skip the ship well far along the way.